you will have probably listened to songs such as Kendrick Lamar's Family Ties, Trippie Redd's Matt Hardy, or Playboi Carti's Go to the Moon, but you probably didn't know that they were all produced by OuttaTown. So here is how he went from being a teenager in Europe with dreams of becoming a producer to working and creating Billboard placing hits with some of hip-hop's most successful artists.
Go to the moon, hey, go to the moon.
Tobias Decker, aka OuttaTown, would be born on the 11th of October in 1999. Born and raised in the Netherlands, OuttaTown would start making music from the age of 11, where he would first want to become a DJ as he was practicing mixing records. But from an early age, he would switch to making beats. He would get inspiration for his beats from Atlanta trap and also by checking out a lot of upcoming SoundCloud artists. He would also take pieces from Dutch music, from rappers such as Ronnie Flex and Bokasam. OuttaTown would start his producing career under the name Flyer, as we can see by this abandoned SoundCloud account. He would then change his name to Andre Hazes. Using this name, we can discover a lot of OuttaTown's early work. A fellow Dutch producer would post beats on SoundCloud from 2015 that the two collaborated on. Then using the name Andre Hazes on Twitter, we can discover more of OuttaTown's activities from the past. There's music produced by him during this 2014 and 2015 period linked in some of the tweets. However, it is all unfortunately deleted. OuttaTown would then get his first placements by simply reaching out to artists on social media. His friends would at him in posts where artists were asking for beats, which he would then reply to or DM the artist with his beats. Now in the February of 2016, OuttaTown would land his first notable placement. He would get in contact with the artist Nestle. All OuttaTown did was send Nestle a DM with some beats, which Nestle got back to and they instantly got to work. On the 25th of February in 2016, Nestle released the song Giddy Up, produced by OuttaTown. The song actually performed fairly well, with it currently sitting on 1.4 million plays on SoundCloud and 400k views on the music video on YouTube. Then in the following months, OuttaTown would produce the Nestle's Seasons, which featured Lil Yachty. Throughout 2016, OuttaTown would continue producing tracks for Nestle while also co-producing Whelan's Xanax Queen alongside fellow producer Clibbo. During this period, OuttaTown will also work with people from his home country as he produced a song for the Dutch artist Bokasam during 2016. Now throughout 2017, OuttaTown would continue working closely with Bokasam and Nestle, producing multiple songs for them. And that was until 2018, because in this year, OuttaTown would land some insane placements. In the July of 2018, OuttaTown co-produced Wiz Khalifa's Holyfield alongside TM88, who is one of the industry's biggest producers, creating tracks such as EXO Tour Life by Lil Uzi, No Bystanders by Travis Scott, and Codeine Crazy by Future. Now, not only was OuttaTown working in the American side of things, he would also work with Japanese artists. El Teresa would release Kira Kira, produced by OuttaTown and Starboy. Now, I'm mentioning this as this is the first song the Dutch duo collaborated on, and it's the first of many hits by the two. Then in the September of 2018, OuttaTown would produce Danny Phantom by Light Fortunato. Now I'm not mentioning this because it's a big notable placement or anything, but due to the fact that this song features Ken Carson, who at the time was a nobody. And I just think it's crazy that he produced a song for Ken so early on, as at this point Ken Carson had no following and wouldn't make any noise until 3 years after this point in time. Now we can get back to Ken Carson later, because after this, OuttaTown would land placements on songs that would change his career forever. In the 24th of September in 2018, OuttaTown with Wheezy and Aviator Keys would produce Icy by Young Thug. Then in the next month, OuttaTown would continue working with Wheezy and Aviator Keys, where he would produce Shorty on the collaborative tape between Juice WRLD and Future, World on Drugs. Then moving on to 2019, he would continue co-producing tracks with TM88 and Wheezy, while also working with Starboy, landing another placement with a Japanese artist, Pets. In the 23rd of August 2019, Pets would release Chrome Hearts, featuring Gabe. Now I feel like this song and the song Kira Kira lets us see more of OuttaTown's overall production, as a lot of the big tracks he's produced so far were just loops other producers used. Now this sound he was working on with Starboy is, I would say, EDM inspired with trap, which can be explained as OuttaTown comes from Europe, where EDM is one of the biggest genres of music. Then he mixed this EDM with some trap, as OuttaTown grew up listening to what he calls Atlanta rap. So even with these huge placements, OuttaTown would still work with smaller artists. In the December of 2019, Yeet, who at the time was a very small underground artist, would release his I'm So Me project, where OuttaTown produced 2 tracks on the album, Are You and Roxy. Now during 2019, Starboy and OuttaTown would create the producer group Hyperpop JP. The group would become known for popularizing hyperpop beats, which is a style that combines virtual EDM melodies with trap drums. The group would first popularize the sound through Lil Uzi Vert's 2020 album Eternal Take. The group featured Art Dealer, Gabe, Loso, OuttaTown, and Starboy. Brandon Finesse would also be a former member. Now moving into 2020 is when OuttaTown would start collaborating with the producer group working on Dying, meaning he would be producing on tracks with some of hip-hop's biggest artists. At the start of 2020, Lil Uzi Vert would release his second studio album, Eternal A Take, where OuttaTown would co-produce 2 tracks alongside Brandon Finesse from working on Dying, Veneta and Celebration Station. And that was just the start of OuttaTown's blow up in 2020. And I don't want to sit here and bore you with the list of placements he landed because he got so many this year. So I'm just going to quickly read out the notable ones. Him, Starboy and Jetson Maid produced Light Skin Shit on the Baby's Blame It On Baby. All Bad and Sasuke with Brandon Finesse, 2 songs from Gunna's album Wunna, co-produced by Wheezy and Aviator Keys. Now we're in late 2020 and as I mentioned before, these big placements didn't stop OuttaTown working with smaller artists. OuttaTown would start working closely with Ken Carson, where he would produce 3 songs from his TNX EP. OuttaTown and Starboy would produce one of Ken Carson's first hits called Yale.
I keep your hoe upstairs. When she wanna fuck, I just tell her.
Now, as many of you know, on Christmas Day of 2020, Playboi Carti would drop his highly anticipated album, Whole Lotta Red. He would produce Meh, King Vamp, Control, Die For Guy, alongside 2 Hyperpop JP members, Art Dealer and Starboy. He would also produce Beano, which was also produced by Ken Carson and Lil 88, and then finally, Go To The Moon, produced by him and a producer he's worked with closely, Wheezy. Now, of course, after working on one of the most highly anticipated albums in hip-hop, OuttaTown blew up. During 2021, he would continue working with Ken Carson, producing songs such as High As Shit, Run Plus Ran, and Rock and Roll, where OuttaTown and Starboy had a big influence on Ken's sound, as they combined rage, trap, and EDM, hype-hop, kind of all in one. OuttaTown would then land 3 placements on Slime Language 2, then produce 4 songs on Trippie Redd's Trip At Night, which is just a full album of rage songs, which was perfect for OuttaTown. And he would produce one of the biggest songs on the album, Matt Hardy 999, featuring Juice WRLD. Then, a week after Trip At Night released, OuttaTown would co-produce an absolute hit. OuttaTown, alongside 5 other producers, would produce Baby Keem's and Kendrick Lamar's Family Ties.
Jumpin' that, summon that bitch, jumpin' that fire.
The song currently is sitting on 651 million plays on Spotify and debuted at number 18 on Billboard's Hot 100, which landed Kendrick Lamar his highest charting song since 2018 at that time. Now from this point, OuttaTown wouldn't land any huge hits. He would work closely with Ken Carson on his Project X album, and then to wrap up 2022, he would produce a crazy rage track, Lifestyle by Homicide Gang. But during 2022, OuttaTown would delve outside of the music world into fashion. He would be a runway model in Amsterdam's Fashion Week, and alongside Starboy would also produce Givenchy's Fall/Winter 2022 fashion show soundtrack. Then to wrap up OuttaTown's credits, during 2023, he would produce 1 song from Lil Uzi Vert's Pink Tape, I Gotta, and would produce 5 songs from Ken Carson's A Great Chaos. Now the hyperpop group that Starboy and OuttaTown founded would actually be rebranded to Adrenaline, Warpster, Starboy, and Gabe, and of course OuttaTown himself. And honestly, that pretty much wraps it up for OuttaTown. He's had an absolutely crazy successful career, producing some of the industry's biggest hits. In the future, I would expect him to closely work with Opium, especially on Playboi Carti's next project. And that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.